Hi, everybody, and welcome to the session where we'll explore the possibilities of SharePoint Spaces to provide remote on-site education. My name is Roel Kooistra. I'm a Microsoft 365 and Azure developer from the Netherlands, working for ShareValue. And ever since I played the original Doom in 1995 in virtual reality, I've been a huge fan of virtual reality. I hope that you are all safe and healthy during the times in which COVID-19 dictates most of our lives. The global pandemic forces us to change and adapt fast because of measures taken by governments. We need to work and also learn from school or from home. And the change in the way we deliver and taking information are challenging, but are also providing possibilities for new technologies to rise to the stage. Technical solutions like Zoom and Microsoft Teams have seen huge growth in the past months, and companies and educational institutions are looking more and more for ways to deliver their important content in other ways to their users. Take, for instance, this Global XR Bootcamp, which is now a stream-only event, but is also hosted in Altspace VR, so that people can still have a feeling of physically going somewhere else and physically meeting people, even though they are just a digital representation of a person. I think that this really captures the essence of virtual reality, because once you set up the virtual reality headset, you are truly transformed to another reality. An important part of education is practical education, where the user experiences the subject at hand. When you, for instance, take an education for a mechanic, it's important that you are physically taken through an engine with disassembling and assembling it. And practice makes perfect. So the more you do this, the better you get at the job at hand. An issue with practical education is that the practical lesson can only be given once. Of course, you can do it multiple times, but there's a finite number of times you can give a certain lesson. You need to go to another subject or time runs out. And when the student is sick, he needs to reschedule, and hopefully there is a place for him or her in another lesson. And if not, they lose out on important knowledge. Also, with COVID-19 and schools closing down because of lockdowns, on-site education is near impossible. Later on, we will dive into SharePoint Spaces to see in a demo how a practical lesson could be set up with SharePoint Spaces so that the user is taken through a 360-degree environment and shown a class as if they were there. Of course, it's not actually the same as touching an engine, but the experience can really add to a lesson. Another part of education is the knowledge you bring to your employees. A new employee starting his first day in the office is taken on a tour through the office. He meets his new colleagues, he gets a lot of information about services and tools that are used, but also about the layout of the office. For instance, where does he get his coffee, or go to the bathroom, or ask questions to an HR member. Again, this is a one-time event. Together with other people or alone, the user is taken on his first day, and another person needs to physically be there to give the tour. So if the person giving the tour is sick or the tour is postponed, the user still starts on his first day, but yeah, he misses out on a lot of knowledge and has to figure it out all by himself. COVID-19 leaves its mark here too, because a lot of offices are closed because of lockdowns or are minimally occupied. So how can a user experience and get a feeling of the workplace at the office when he cannot physically get there? Later on, we will find out in a demo how a 360 guided tour can help the employee get around the office and make sure that when we can get back to the offices, people know where to go and where their own workplace is. A new employee could also be starting in a hazardous environment, like a factory, where there are all kinds of safety regulations in place. Maybe the user is given a leaflet with all the important safety regulations and expected to follow them from the first day he arrives in the factory. It could also be a safety video with a survey afterwards to test his knowledge. But how much more powerful would it be if the user would be placed in a virtual tour where he is taken through a factory or even his own workplace, and at the end of the tour, he gets placed into a hazardous situation and needs to put all the safety regulations that he learned to good use to get into safety. The user could be placed in a very dangerous situation that otherwise could not be taught to him. Ever since I saw the announcement of SharePoint Spaces on the North American SharePoint Conference in 2018 and experienced the hands-on demo there, I'm super excited about this technology. I've been a SharePoint developer for many years, and the ability to combine my SharePoint knowledge with one of my other passions, virtual reality, is amazing. No longer is it needed to have extensive knowledge of 3D modeling tools or game engines like Unity to build a virtual reality experience. You can actually build a virtual reality experience yourself like you would build a page in SharePoint. So what is a SharePoint space? It's a 360-degree experience in which the user is placed in the middle of an environment in which he can then interact with all kinds of content like 3D models, videos, 360-degree guided views, lists, and documents. For the full experience, the user can use a virtual reality headset like an Oculus or a Windows Mixed Reality headset. And for the users using these kind of devices, you can also add sound to the space, which really add to the immersiveness. The user can also look around and interact with the space from a screen, but it really takes away from the immersive experience. The space is opened as part of a SharePoint site in a SharePoint in a browser, and the browser needs to support WebGL2. Browsers like Chrome, Edge, and Firefox support this. Browsers that support WebGL1 are also supported, like Safari, but they have a degraded visual quality. SharePoint Spaces is in public preview since April 2020, and by activating the Spaces feature in your site features, you get the ability to create a space just like you would create a page. When you create a space, a site page is added, which you can edit and add web parts to. The big difference, of course, is that this time you have a 360-degree canvas in which you can place the web parts. The web parts are actually placed in space, so you get some extra variables to control this. Web parts right now are all out of the box. We cannot yet create our own web parts, but they have announced that this will come in the future, and that it will follow the same line with the SharePoint web parts right now. So the SharePoint framework will be the way to create these. The out-of-the-box web parts already do provide a lot of functionality, and so with some creative use, you can already create great experiences. There are various resources needed to create space depending on the goal. 360-degree photos is, of course, the most obvious one. You can use it as a background, you can use it as a standalone 360-degree photo, or you can use them for your 360-degree guided tours. There are various ways to create your own 360-degree photos. Important to note is that in SharePoint Spaces, you use the spheric panoramic photos. So it's like a bubble that you're inside of. You can create them with a normal camera on a tripod with a panoramic head on it, and then stitch them together later on with various programs like Photoshop. Also, you can use your phone. There are various apps. The one I tried is Google Street View, which guides you through the whole process of creating a spheric panorama, which pictures you take, and then stitches them together, and you can use them in your SharePoint space. And the last option is a 360-degree camera, like the GoPro Max or the Ricoh Theta. They create, with a one click, they create a 360-degree spheric photo, but the quality of the 360-degree camera photos is a bit lower than when you create them yourself with a loose camera. A few tips to keep in mind when you shoot spheric panoramas for the spaces. For the spaces background, you actually want the viewpoint to be a little bit lower because the user is already put a little bit higher than the photo in the space. You can play around a little with the height, but especially when you're shooting indoors, doing the lower viewpoint gets you better results. And for the 360-degree photos and 360-degree guides, actually the viewpoint around eye level is best because the user is put at that height, so they experience it just as if they are there. When you shoot the 360-degree photos from hand, especially with the 360-degree cameras, you need to keep in mind that the person that takes the photo will also be in the picture. 360-degree video can also be shot with various cameras which are available, like the GoPro. It's good to think about what you want to shoot with your video, because since the footage will be in spherical 360, the filmer will also be in the shot. It's recommended that the video added to your SharePoint site is in the WebM format with the VP9 codec. This is for most scenarios the best. The WebM format can be opened by most browsers, except for Safari. For Safari, it needs to be in MP4 with the H.264 codec, but it will have a degraded visual quality. 360-degree video can be a great way to transport the user to a situation that the user normally wouldn't be in, like for instance surfing a wave or being in the middle of a fire. 3D models can be added to space but need to follow some rules. Models in the GLB and FBX format can contain animations and materials, and SharePoint Spaces provides a set of 3D models ranging from unicorns to office supplies to play around with. And you can also upload your own 3D models that you created with various 3D modeling tools like Blender or 3D models that you found on the internet. You could, for instance, create 3D models, and on every model you have a certain part highlighted to focus the attention of the viewer to that specific part. The GLB format is the recommended format since it can contain animation and materials and is best used in your SharePoint space. So how can we use SharePoint Spaces to teach practical knowledge to students? The power of Spaces is that it transports the user to a virtual representation of reality. So a teacher can build a virtual classroom in which a student is shown a 3D model of, for instance, an engine. The student can then interact with the engine, turn it around, look at it, and see it from up close. Classroom could also be built with a medical teaching, so that you see a heart which you can turn around and see from up close. In the next demo, we will see how we can set up a SharePoint space for this purpose. Let's get started. This demo, we will be building a SharePoint space for a classroom in which SpaceX rocket is learned to a student. So first we start by creating a space. We can choose a structure which is shown in the space, and for the sake of this demo we're going to use the terrace to give the space a name. So in this case it's going to be a SpaceX classroom. In this case, I created my own custom 360 file. So that's over here. And if I upload a new one, which is this one, I add it. And then I have my own 360-degree photo as a background for my space. You can add a welcome message to the space. So when the first time a user is entering the space, an audio file is played. So as a teacher, you can add an audio file in which the user is then told what the purpose of this classroom is and what he can find. You can also add some ambient sounds if you like. There are some defaults, and of course you can put your own audio file. We republish the space, change the background. Now we're going to edit space to really get the models in that we use for the classroom. So here on the top left, we have a little plus sign with which we can add web parts to the space. You see here all kinds of web parts: the 360 image, the 360 tour, video, 3D objects, file viewers, text. So today we're going to start with the 3D object that I'm going to place here, and as you can see, I can place it around a big part of the space. So you can use something here from OneDrive from the site, so you can upload your 3D models up front in the site. But you could also upload your own while you're building it. So I'm going to upload one, and it is a 3D model of the SpaceX Raptor engine. So this is the model how it is when we load it from the file. Good thing to note that if you're scrolling and zooming in and out in your space, you actually move your viewport up, but the view from all the way zoomed in is what the user will actually see. The user cannot change its viewport during the use of space, so it will stay at this height. But as a designer of space, you can change it so that you can create a good layout. So now we have the 3D model here of the engine. It's not yet that useful, I think. You can see it, and the user will be able to turn it around and stuff. And down here, you see the extra properties that I talked about earlier. With this, you can change where the model is in the radius of the space. And here you can move it in and out, so closer to the user or further away. And with this, you can change the height. Now you can also do this with the mouse. You just drag it around. The little ones on the bottom here are especially useful for small detailed changes. So if you want to turn the model around, because I like it if the model is a bit more like this. So when the user looks at it now, he will see the engine from the side. And I also think that the engine is a little bit too small. Let's make it a little bit bigger. That's with the scaling. So let's set it to, let's say 5. So as a user, I will be seeing the engine like this. And I'm changing the angle a little bit around the axis so that I get the best view possible that I think is useful. So that's the 3D model that I added to the space. And if I change the properties by clicking on the pencil here, I get the properties here on the right. I can add some alternate text, and I can also show a podium. So right now, because it's really close down to the floor, we see just a little bit of the podium. And if we put the model a little bit higher, the podium will start to get visible. I think this would be about right. Here you can change how high the podium, how high the model is from the podium. So I think this is good. And the properties here, they go on the trigger, and that's inspect. For the user, that's either clicking it or with the virtual reality controllers also triggering with your finger. We can turn here on the use scene orientation. If we turn this on, then the model will be shown as we put it in the scene. If this is turned off, the model would be put back to the vertical position that was originally in. And we can also constrain the object rotation so that it can only be rotated horizontally and not vertically. For the sake of this demo, we're not going to use that. We can add some other actions, like link to another space. So you can link spaces to each other, play some audio, for instance, the sound of an engine, or link to a page or an item. I think that we're done with this for now. And if you want to check how it looks, we republish, and then we get into the viewer side of the space. And we can click the engine, turn it around, and really see all the parts that are in this engine. Now, because this is a classroom, we're going to add some information to this. So we put up a text. And we put our text here. So we're going to say that this is the SpaceX Raptor engine. We're going to make the text color white, the background color black. And we give it a bit of a corner radius just to make it a little bit stand out. This can also have a podium. So you have a podium for the text, but I think in this case it's not that useful, because what I want to do is I put the text on top of the other podium. And as you can see, it's a little bit too high right now. So we put it down. Now we have a nice title with our engine. Another thing that we're going to add is a file viewer. And we're going to add it over here. I'm going to upload a document, which is a fact sheet about the Raptor engine. So right now the document is over here. It's a bit, so we need to turn it around a little bit so that it looks like it's part of the whole display that we're building here. I think that's about right. And if we republish, we're going to see how our model looks. So now we have a model with a title and a document here. And if the user clicks the document, it will open it, but it will only open the first page. You cannot scroll in the document. You can click on adding it to your favorites so that you can read it later on in your SharePoint site, or you can open it. But if you open it in a new tab, it will be opened in a regular tab. And if you're in a VR in space, you have to get out of the glasses and to read the document. So I think for now it's really useful to make fact sheets with a single page, and maybe some extra information that you can read later on. But in the future, I would like to see some scrolling in these documents. So that's the first part of the engine, but yeah, we want to know more about it. So the model I downloaded, I have changed it a little bit in Blender, and I added some highlights. So now I'm going to add another 3D model. And in this model, I highlighted the fuel lines of the engine. Now I want the same look and feel of the other one, so I can take over the measurements and placement of the other engine. I will do that right now. You can write these down, of course, so that you build the space the same way every time you do it. So right now, the model is about the same height and size of the other one we used. So we put the other one at 1 in height and gave it a podium. So now we do also here. We'll give it the same height. We add another text file to which we say Raptor engine view lines. And then try to get the text to line up. So now we've created a second model of the same model actually, but with a highlighted view line. So the user can interact with the engine and actually see where the lines are and how they run in the engine. And we can edit and add another model that I also created earlier, in which the combustion engine is highlighted. So for this one, we also enter the variables to make it look around the same size and turn the same way as the other models we had. Keep it consistently with each other. And we give this a podium, put it around the same height. And add a text which says Raptor engine combustion with the white text and the black background. And then get this to add up. For this, we also have another document, which we put over here. And if we put that in, I've created a document with the combustion engine schematic. We can also make this a little bit bigger so that user can better see the schematic before open it. So we put it like something like that. So now we have 3 models in which we can teach the user how the engine looks, what the fuel lines are, and the combustion engine and how it works. And right now the user can look in the space. He can click all the models, which 2 of them are the same. He can look at it. He can turn it around as much as he wants and look around at them. He can read some extra information, read schematics, and also watch a video the test start of the rocket engine. So that demo showed how a SharePoint space could be set up. With the preview version of Spaces, you can already build great experiences in which the user is placed in the middle of a subject. Possibilities for the future are tracking of what the user interacted with, maybe a surveying space, which the user can already fill in when he's inside the space, and of course, being able to open the documents in the space itself. Because as we saw in the demo, the document needs to be opened outside the space. Another form of education I talked about earlier is the education of a new employee during the onboarding process. The 360-degree guides in SharePoint Spaces provides the tools to create a 360-degree guided tour for the user. In the next demo, we will see how I set up a 360-degree guide for the onboarding process of new employees at ShareValue. So in this demo, we're going to explore how the 360 guided views can help onboarding new employees. We're going to start by adding the web part to the space and upload a collection of images to the space. With the images uploaded, we then edit the web part. We'll make it a little bit bigger. And we go to the properties of the web part. Here we can see stuff like alternate text and if a podium should be shown or not. And if we open the tour builder, we get into the first picture 360-degree photo that we added to the tour. And if you look below, you see all the pictures and you can skip through them to edit them all. In the top right corner, we can set the starting view of the image, which will be the view of the image that the user will be in. The one that we want. Add a description so that the user will know what he just clicked on and where we will go. Then we go to that view and edit it. And set the starting view. And this time we add a file. And this will be a brochure for the user to read. If you republish, you can see how the user will view the space when he will use it for real. If we click on edit, we go straight back to the view that we were editing. So we add another 360-degree image so that the user can navigate around the office. And for the sake of this demo, I will now be adding a few more items, and we'll show you what it looks like when it would be finished and we walk around the office. So now we have more links, and the user can then look around, navigate to different spots in the office, where we, for instance, added a text here, which explains how the flex spots work in the office. If the user ever gets lost in the space, he can always click in the middle, and then a menu will open in which he can exit the 360-degree guided tour or go back to the previous 360-degree view. I've also added a video which will open as a pop-up. And if you look at the documents, this has the same issue that we had earlier in the spaces, that you can only add it as a favorite or open it in a new browser window, which, if you do this with a virtual reality glasses, takes you out of the experience. So you can add some labels inside the spaces to really make sure that the user gets to know the office and knows his way around. I think it's a great way for onboarding new members, especially in this COVID-19 times, when the user cannot be physically in the office as much as we would like. So I hope that you have gotten a feeling of how the 360-degree guided tours can be used for an onboarding process. The last demo I want to show you is how the guides can also be used for a hazardous environment. For instance, a fire drill or getting safety in case of a toxic gas cloud release. You can create a situation in which the user is placed, for instance, with edited spheric panoramas, and the user can then experience a dangerous situation which they normally would not be in, and then they can learn how to respond. In the next demo, we will look into this and see how we can use the 360-degree guided tours to create such a training. In this last demo, I have tried to create an example of a dangerous situation, and I have reused the 360-degree images that I used of the office of ShareValue. I have added a layer to it, which represents smoke, and now the user is expected to get out of the office as fast as he can. Of course, this is a small example. The office is not that big, and the situation um, is not as hazardous as it would be in a factory. For the use of giving the user a disoriented experience, I have added multiple links to different 360-degree images. So the user could be a little bit confused of where to go, and I have also not added descriptions. So if the user hovers over it, he won't see where he's going. So this really asks the knowledge of the user of where he is and where he needs to go. So when they click it, they go through the office, of course. And I have added smoke to multiple 360-degree images, and I have also added a few mistakes so that if you get there, you will see that you made a mistake. So right now the user is in the corridor, which is filled up with smoke. You see the signs of where the emergency exits are. I have highlighted them a bit so that it's visible, clearly visible, which is of course one of the safety regulations that should be followed. And by adding all the links, which also are faulty ones, the user really needs to try and see where he needs to go. So if he clicks on the door here on the left, and he will come into a fault situation. Now I've added the text message here, and then we will see that he found the closet, which is of course not where we want to be. So this is a relatively simple example of how you, with some editing, you can create a situation for the user that seems hazardous and really asks of the user that he knows the safety regulations. So for instance, a route out of a factory, and you can really put the person at the spot that he will be working in and make him get out of it. For the future, some tracking would be nice so that you can really see in how many clicks a user got out of a hairy situation, for instance, or how many mistakes someone made. So I hope this demo gave you an idea of my intentions of using the 360-degree guided tours to create a training for a hazardous environment and for a safety regulations training. I want to thank you for your time with me during this session, and if you are following this session live during the Global XR Bootcamp, I will be available for questions after this session. Hi, Emmett.
Yep, I will. Yep. Thank you for that lovely session.
Yeah, it was great fun to put it together.
Yep. So we'll dive right into Q&A. But before we go into the comments, so if you have any question, please do drop it in the comment tab. I'm sure Rory is more than happy to answer your question. But I mean, where do you see the impact of SharePoint Space in the next 5 years? Saying the fact that there are also like competitor tools out there. So like, where do you see it in the next 5 years?
Yeah, well, of course there are competitors out there, and but this makes it really easy for the end user to build a space just like he would build a page, what he's used to already in SharePoint. And now we can build a space to create the experience for the user. So I think that's where Spaces has the edge on other technologies, I think, and also because it's part of the 365 landscape. You usually already have the tools to use it.
Great, awesome. So just trying to check. So I think there's a comment here. So it's probably something you want to look at.
Yeah. So yeah, well, it's different, yeah, because now you can create a virtual space that you can look around. You can create a 360-degree experience. I fell in love with the whole Spaces once it was announced, and I understand that last week it was announced that it will be general available this November. It was in preview when I recorded the session, but now it's coming to GA soon, so that's a good thing.
Yep. So we also have this.
Yeah, it took quite some time because I had to take the photos, which for the demo I did with the GoPro. It makes it a little bit easier because then you can take the shots one shot at a time instead of stitching them all together. So that was a time saver. But once you have the 360-degree photos, it's actually quite fast because you upload them, you add the little links to other photos and the extra information, and once you have the resources, you can build it up quite fast. And yeah, the 360-degree photos, that's the main part, I think. If you want good quality, then it takes more time, because you have to stitch the photos together, and that's a process that takes a while.
Great. I mean, when I was looking at the interaction, like the moving in from one scene to another scene, it was kind of like, I think, seeing the fact that I've also tried other 360 capture apps, but from the demo you showed, this looks quite better and actually much more interactive.
Yeah, you have a lot of interactive stuff to add to the screen. I think is that what you meant with your question? So all the interactions that you can do.
Yes.
Yeah. So they added audio, video, and also 360-degree video, which can be started. So, for instance, for the office, you can also start a 360-degree video in which you show the office around in a guided tour without them clicking, and you just show them around. And that could be 360-degree or a regular video. And also the audio adds to the immersiveness, because you can add sounds like factory sounds or stuff like that to a workplace.
Yep, sweet. So I think we don't have any more questions, and I mean, lovely session, Mel. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I saw some very nice demo today, super fantastic. So if you'd want to drop your social media ads, so probably people can follow you and throw their questions at you directly.
Yeah, I think they are in a session. So yeah, I will drop them in the comments.
Okay, great, fantastic. So thank you, Will, and have a good day.
Yeah, thank you.